Before she was known as the victim in court documents, she was a little girl named Natalie. Natalie was born in 2014. Like a lot of kids in the system, her life became tangled in adult problems long before she had a chance to grow up. Authorities eventually removed her from her biological home, and she entered foster care with her sisters. At some point, her name changed. After adoption, she became Kennedy Schroer. On paper, that adoption was supposed to be a second chance, a forever family in Rose Hill, Kansas. But according to prosecutors and investigators, the home she was placed in was far from safe. As more documents came out, they described a house full of surveillance cameras, strict rules, and punishments that went far beyond normal discipline. Kennedy never became a missing person on the news. There was never an Amber Alert. There was never a police bulletin with her face. For years, as far as schools and agencies knew, she just disappeared from the paperwork. According to court records and prosecutors, Crystina and Joseph Schroer ran their home with extreme control. Children told investigators that cameras were set up around the house to monitor them. They described starvation, being forced to lie still, and being punished if they moved at night. One of the most disturbing details to come out in court was something they called the box. Prosecutors say that when Kennedy moved in bed at night, her adoptive mother, Crystina, would punish her by putting her into a small, reinforced cardboard box, roughly the size of a shipping carton. The box was allegedly weighted down with blankets and other items on top. One child later told investigators they were terrified of being put into these spaces. They remembered begging, "Please don't make us get in the boxes." This wasn't a one-time thing. It was described as a pattern of punishment and control, and it's inside this box that prosecutors believe Kennedy's life came to an end. Investigators believe that in late 2020, when she was just 6 years old, Kennedy was placed in that box for the last time. Court documents say she stopped responding. Instead of calling 911, instead of taking her to a hospital, prosecutors say Crystina drove around with the body for hours. Eventually, they say she came home, wrapped Kennedy's body in trash bags, and buried her in a shallow grave in the backyard, roughly 2 feet deep, near the master bedroom where she and Joseph slept. From that point on, Kennedy was gone, but she was never reported missing. According to prosecutors, Medicaid benefits for Kennedy kept being collected even after her death. And to other children in the home, a different story was told, that Kennedy had been sent away to some kind of mental hospital. For nearly 4 years, her remains stayed buried in that yard. This case didn't start with a missing child poster. It started with a mental health call. In September 2024, police in Rose Hill responded to a report of a person in distress at the Schroer home, someone threatening self-harm, barricaded inside. During that call, officers learned information that made them suspect a much older, darker crime. They got a search warrant. They went into the yard. At first, they didn't find anything. The area was overgrown. They had to bring in equipment to clear brush and cadaver dogs to search for human remains. Then, they dug deeper. Roughly 23 inches down, they uncovered a trash bag. Inside, they found decomposed remains of a child. DNA testing confirmed what investigators feared. It was 6-year-old Kennedy, the girl no one had reported missing. A forensic exam concluded she had died years earlier, likely in late 2020, and that her death was a homicide by probable suffocation. Suddenly, the quiet suburban house was a crime scene. The adoptive parents, who'd never reported their daughter missing, were under the spotlight. In early 2025, police arrested Crystina and Joseph Schroer. They were initially charged with serious offenses: murder, child abuse involving torture, and related crimes. Prosecutors alleged a pattern of ongoing abuse in the home, not just a single incident. But as the case moved through the system, something happened that would shape its ending: plea deals. Crystina, the adoptive mother, eventually pleaded no contest to second-degree murder, child abuse, making a false writing, and theft. In court, the prosecutor described how she used the box, how she buried Kennedy in the backyard, and how the abuse affected the other children. The judge sentenced her to 215 months in prison, just under 18 years. Under Kansas law, she'll have to serve most of that time before she's even eligible for parole. In that same hearing, the judge told her she had betrayed everyone: Kennedy, her siblings, and both families involved. Joseph's path was very different. Instead of going to trial on murder or torture charges, he pleaded no contest to 2 counts of aggravated child endangerment and 1 count of Medicaid fraud. Those charges focused on what he allowed to happen. Prosecutors say he knew Kennedy was gone, allowed ongoing abuse in the home, and continued to accept benefits in her name. He was not convicted of homicide. When he went before the judge in December 2025, the sentence stunned a lot of people following the case. 60 days in jail, 4 years of probation, and a 14-month underlying prison term that only activates if he violates that probation. The same case, the same house, the same backyard grave. One parent gets nearly 18 years, the other 60 days and supervised freedom. Legally, the explanation is that prosecutors and the court treated Crystina as the direct killer and Joseph as someone who failed to protect and committed fraud. But online, that distinction has not gone over well. When national outlets started reporting that a father connected to a child's torture and backyard burial would serve just 60 days, comment sections lit up. People pointed out that non-violent drug offenders have received longer sentences. Others asked how someone could live in a house with cameras, extreme punishments, and a missing child, and walk away with essentially 2 months in jail. For many viewers, especially parents, it raises 3 big questions. How did no one notice she was missing? No Amber Alert. No missing child report. No welfare checks that caught the fact that one child had disappeared. Why was the oversight system so weak? Agencies knew this was an adoptive home with multiple children and prior involvement. Yet, for years, no one checked close enough to uncover the truth. Is the law too soft on failure to protect? Cases like this bring up a hard debate. When one caregiver is the main physical abuser, how harshly should the other be punished if they allegedly look the other way? Some legal experts argue that without enough evidence to prove Joseph directly participated in the killing, prosecutors took the best plea they could get under the law. Others argue that the law itself is the problem, that it doesn't fully account for silent complicity in long-term child abuse. Either way, the outcome is the same. Kennedy is gone. The person who buried her faces nearly 2 decades behind bars. And the person who went on living in that house, collecting her benefits, will count his jail time in days, not years. It's easy in cases like this to focus only on the adults, on plea deals, sentences, and legal technicalities. But at the center of this story is a 6-year-old girl who never got a chance to grow up, a child who was removed from one unsafe situation and placed into another that turned out to be far worse. If there's anything to take from the Kansas backyard burial case, it's this: systems can fail, people can hide behind paperwork, and sometimes the only reason the truth comes out is because of one accidental call, one investigator who asks more questions, or one child brave enough to tell the truth later. Let me know in the comments, do you think the 60-day sentence for Joseph is fair under the law? Or does this case show that the law itself needs to change? If you found this breakdown helpful and want more in-depth, respectful coverage of real cases, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. And please remember, do not contact, harass, or threaten anyone connected to this case. This video is for information and discussion only. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and look out for the kids around you.